Right, so let's talk about the co-main event this weekend. Derrick Lewis versus Tai Tuivasa is an amazing heavyweight matchup that I've been looking forward to ever since it was announced. And I've been looking forward to it because it's a recipe for excitement in that first round. I don't see this being a boring fight whatsoever. Of course, there is that small chance that the MMA gods are going to be cruel yet again and take away from us an exciting matchup that should exist this weekend. But I do believe this is going to be a first round finish in either guy's direction. And I'm going to double down and say that this is going to be a first-minute finish by KO to Derrick Lewis is who I'm siding with here. And I'm very emotionally confused by this matchup because I don't want either guy to lose. I like both of them. They're both cults of personality. I really look forward to everything they do, whether it be interviews or promos or even the embedded episodes. They're always fun on there as well. And I'm really looking forward to this matchup, but I just don't want to see the harsh reality that is one of these guys flatline KO'd on the canvas come this weekend, because that's just a harsh reality of MMA. One of these men has a 90% chance, in my opinion, of being flatline KO'd on the ground. And it's going to be very hard to see, but it's also going to be wickedly exciting as well, which is why I'm so excited for this matchup. And I am leaning in the direction of Derrick Lewis. I don't see this being boring. Of course, in the first fight between Derrick Lewis and Ngannou, they only had one fight anyway, but in that matchup that they had, Ngannou was coming off that really bad loss to Stipe Miocic, and his mind wasn't really in it. And also Derrick Lewis was injured. He had a back problem going into that fight as well. So there was a lot of outside circumstances that led to that fight being the way that it was. So I do definitely see this being a first round KO, because both of these guys do exactly what they want each other to do. There ain't going to be a guy in this matchup looking to establish a jab and keep range. There isn't going to be a guy in this matchup looking to throw a teep kick to manage distance on the outside and not let the other guy close the distance. I truly believe they do exactly what they want each other to do, which is trade knockout blows in the pocket and get immediately to work in that first round. Tai Tuivasa riding a 4 KO streak, I believe, in the heavyweight division. I think that all but one of his wins ever in his career have come by way of finish, which is a ridiculous stat line. And then, of course, you've got Derrick Lewis, who is the knockout king, period, of MMA, because not just a heavyweight division, he has the most KOs in UFC history, and in most KOs, I guess, ever. Maybe Fedor Emelianenko would maybe have a bit of a lead over him. I don't quite know the numbers, but I would imagine that Derrick Lewis has the most KO wins, because there's so many that I've seen from him. He at least has the most brutal one-punch KO wins, maybe of all time. I'm really looking forward to the matchup this weekend. And again, yeah, the knockout king versus a new knockout artist coming up the heavyweight division. I respect Derrick Lewis for taking this matchup, because he doesn't need to take number 11 in the world, Tai Tuivasa, on this card, but he wants to anyway. He embarrassed Houston last time, I do believe he was saying. He didn't like his performance against Cyril Gane, and how could he? I mean, Cyril Gane completely schooled him and then put him away in the later rounds of that fight, embarrassingly, and Derrick Lewis had pretty much no amount of success in that fight whatsoever. So he wants to redeem himself, and he's been incredibly active, taking on every contender that's coming up. He beat Chris Daukaus in December, KO'd him in the first round. I picked him to win that one by first round KO as well. Don't mind me. Also, he's now taking on Tai Tuivasa, number 11 in the world, while Derrick Lewis is number 3. And I do believe that Derrick Lewis should move above Stipe Miocic if he does win this weekend, because if you look at the rankings of the heavyweight division, Derrick Lewis has beaten a lot of guys in the rankings of the heavyweight division. Chris Daukaus, Alexander Volkov, Curtis Blades, Blagoy Ivanov, he has a win over as well. He has a lot of wins in the heavyweight division that you wouldn't quite notice at first glance. Maybe soon to be Tai Tuivasa this weekend, and I'm sure there's a bunch of others that I'm not remembering it off the top of my head right now. But Derrick Lewis, he even has a win over Marcin Tybura as well in the heavyweight division. And if you look at Stipe Miocic, he doesn't have a win over any current heavyweight on the roster outside of Ngannou, of course, but so does Derrick Lewis. He has that win over Ngannou, so I do believe he should be number 2 above Stipe Miocic after this bout, because he's been active. He's been getting back in there. He fought Cyril Gane in August. He turned right back around in December after getting TKO'd, by the way, in front of his home crowd, which can't be a very nice pill to swallow. He turns right back around before the end of the year, flatline KOs Chris Daukaus, and now he's turning around just I believe 7 or 8 weeks later to take on Tai Tuivasa, and that tells me one thing: he's healthy. There's no way Derrick Lewis would be turning around this quickly between matchups unless he was healthy to do so, because you just can't possibly do that at heavyweight to be that active after all of the fights that he's had, especially after Cyril Gane literally did TKO him 6 months ago, and he's going to have had 2 matchups by the time the 6-month period is over after that Cyril Gane fight. I just believe Derrick Lewis has more KO power than Tai Tuivasa, and I think that's what it's going to come down to. Tai Tuivasa cracks someone on the chin, hurts them badly, then follows up with a combo and puts them down, and maybe sometimes finishes them off with ground and pound, but sometimes they could be out cold, but who knows how it's going to go. Derrick Lewis can land with the wrist of his hand, and you're done. You're out cold, done. He landed on Curtis Blades with his wrist, and Curtis Blades was flatline KO'd immediately, out cold, done. There's no returning from that. And I feel like if both of these men want to stand in the pocket and trade with each other, which I do suppose they're going to try and do, although I do believe Tai Tuivasa is going to try and mix in some calf kicks that I don't think are going to be too effective. I think they're actually going to get him caught in the first place, which is why I'm going to go with Derrick Lewis here. But I think they're going to trade in the pocket, and I like Derrick Lewis's power a lot more than I like Tai Tuivasa's power. Of course, Tuivasa does have KO power himself, so it's going to be interesting to see maybe if Derrick Lewis plays it a little bit more patient. But I think they're going to get straight to work. He's in Houston. He's got to redeem himself. He's in front of his home crowd. He's got to make something happen, and I think he's going to go straight for Tuivasa immediately with that jumping switch kick. Straight off the bat, as soon as the bell sounds, jumping switch kick from Derrick Lewis. He lands. They both start trading back and forth. Tuivasa chops at his leg a couple of times. Lewis takes it a couple of times, finds his timing. Tuivasa goes for another leg kick as well, and then Lewis times that leg kick and lands a big right hand on his chin that's going to hurt him badly. And then they're both going to be swinging back and forth. Tuivasa lands one big shot on Derrick Lewis. Lewis lands a big shot on Tai Tuivasa. Down goes Tai Tuivasa. I just don't see someone beating Derrick Lewis at his own game, and I think that's what Tai Tuivasa is going to have to do. I don't see either guy grappling here either, unless Derrick Lewis wants to try that out, because we have seen Tai Tuivasa struggle in the grappling department in fights before. But also, Tai Tuivasa has improved his grappling massively, so maybe we see Tai Tuivasa pushing Derrick Lewis up against the cage, kneeing on his thigh, stomping on his feet a little bit, and playing the patient game and trying to be a bit more smart about this. Because if Tai Tuivasa wins, he's one fight away from a title shot. And if Derrick Lewis wins, he might be able to get a title shot if none of these heavyweights do anything. We got Curtis Blades out on the sidelines. We've got Stipe Miocic, no idea what he's doing, but he was calling out John Jones. And I mean, John Jones was calling out him and making it seem that he was interested in that matchup. So maybe they do Jones versus Stipe. But if they don't do Jones versus Stipe soon, if Derrick Lewis wins this and he's the only guy that's around coming off a win, and Ngannou's going to be looking to take on Derrick Lewis when he comes back into the UFC heavyweight division. And Derrick Lewis has a win over Ngannou, so I believe that's going to entice Ngannou to want that matchup even more, just to perfect his legacy and clear that loss off of his resume. And then he'll have a perfect legacy as well, because he's only lost to Stipe Miocic, who he redeemed himself against. Also, he lost to Derrick Lewis before, which he can now have a chance, if Lewis wins this weekend, to redeem himself against as well. And he also has one loss against some fat nobody earlier on in his career that I thought was a robbery, by the way, but either way, they gave it to the fat guy anyway, and it was a close fight, so it wasn't a great performance from Francis Ngannou. But I do believe that Derrick Lewis is going to win this one. I think he's got too much power in the first round, and I just don't think Tai Tuivasa is physically imposing enough to make Derrick Lewis worry or hesitate or bite on any feints and get picked apart at range. I think he's going to go in there trying to go head-to-head with the Black Beast, and I think he's going to fail massively, because Derrick Lewis is a different level of the heavyweight limit than Tai Tuivasa is, and just looking at them will tell you that. Okay, Derrick Lewis is more of the muscle underneath bloated kind of fat, whereas Tai Tuivasa is sort of the sure, he's got strong legs, but it's all just a loose, like partially empty beanbag in there. You know what I mean? Like, he's not quite the same physical specimen that Derrick Lewis is. I think Lewis is going to have a strength advantage. I think Tuivasa might have a hand speed advantage, but if he's going to land 2 for 1, I still think Derrick Lewis is going to land that killer blow on Tai Tuivasa. I don't want to see him get KO'd, but we've seen it in his previous fights. Even though Tai Tuivasa has been doing amazingly recently by getting a bunch of first-round KOs, we still see quite often in his career he's getting caught in the first round. He got caught a couple of times by Struve. More recently, Augusto Sakai took him to the second round. Had a reasonably competitive first round with him. I thought Tai Tuivasa won the first round against Augusto Sakai, but still, it was a very close first round. Sakai had him up against a cage, landing a bunch of good knees to the body and starting to invest really well on Tai Tuivasa. But either way, Tai Tuivasa gets the job done. He finds a way to land the shot that he needs to and get that KO blow. I just feel like even against Harry Hunsucker, he gets clipped right on the chin immediately in that first round, and then it sort of wakes him up, and then he goes out there and gets the KO on Harry Hunsucker. Even against his previous opponent of Greg Hardy, he goes out there in the first round. Sure, he's chopping at the legs early and doing quite well, but he gets cracked, I believe, twice really cleanly by Greg Hardy, who I don't believe is the level of striker that Derrick Lewis is. Maybe Greg Hardy's better with the straight punches of that straight right hand that he was landing on Tai Tuivasa a couple of times in that first round. Tuivasa, of course, got rocked, and then Greg Hardy went in for a finish, and then Tuivasa made him pay for that and put him away. I don't see Derrick Lewis getting a bit overzealous for a finish. I think they're going to trade back and forth in the pocket in a neutral stance, and Lewis is going to come out on top because I think he's got equally as good of a chin, and I also believe he's just got a lot more power in his hands, and also just, he's Derrick Lewis. There's just like an aura around him that Tuivasa, I know, is going to be feeling subconsciously that this is the guy that completely changes people's careers and flatlines them out cold. This is the guy that Ngannou was too hesitant to trade with. What am I going to do, my little lard-ass Tai Tuivasa? Like, I feel like Tai Tuivasa is in a little bit too much over his head. I wish he wouldn't have taken this matchup, in all honesty. I wish he would have taken something like a Jairzinho Rozenstruik, a little bit of a smaller striker that he would have a little bit more of a chance against, but equally a risky matchup as well. But now he's jumping in there against Derrick Lewis from number 11 in the world. Number 11 in the world against number 3 in the world that arguably could be number 2, but should be number 2 after this matchup anyway. I just don't see this going good for Tai Tuivasa, man. And the winner of this one's going to be in a good spot. Of course, Derrick Lewis probably gets a title shot. Tai Tuivasa, I do believe, is going to be one fight away from a title shot. Listen, maybe they give him a chance, and just because he's a big name and maybe it's a viral KO enough to where he can go out there and get a title shot against Ngannou. Well, I don't see that happening. What I would see them doing is, if Tai Tuivasa wins, or even if Derrick Lewis wins, they're going to try and get Jones versus Stipe to be the co-main event of McGregor's comeback card and build some hype around that massively. And then do the winner of that one versus Francis Ngannou, and the winner of Derrick Lewis versus Tai Tuivasa versus the winner of Alexander Volkov versus Tom Aspinall. Because there's great storylines either way. If it's Tuivasa and Aspinall, it's the new blood of the division going towards each other. If you've got Derrick Lewis and Alexander Volkov, that's equally a fun matchup as well. Derrick Lewis Aspinall. Derrick Lewis takes on another up-and-comer. There's just so many great matchups you can make. Volkov versus Tuivasa. Tuivasa's taken down one skyscraper. Maybe he needs to take on Stefan Struve 2.0. It's going to be some fun stuff in the heavyweight division moving forward, and I'm just really looking forward to this fight, but I just know I don't want to see someone get flatline KO'd, but I reckon one of them's going to get flatline KO'd brutally. And it's sad. It's sad that that's what happens in our sport. You don't just get a bucket thrown against you and a swish three-pointer and all of a sudden some guy's in your face like, yeah, I'm on smoke with you. Like, you put a ball in a fucking net. Stop acting so fucking hard, you know what I mean? Like, it's different in this sport. The consequences are so dire. I just think Tuivasa's taking a bit of a step too soon. This is an active Derrick Lewis as well, so he's going to be more than ready to start this fight very quickly. I believe Tai Tuivasa's last fight was... when was Tai Tuivasa's last fight? 269? As well, maybe 269, 268. I want to say 269, maybe even not 267. It can't have been 267. I don't know when his last fight was, but both of these guys have been very active, so I don't see there being a bit of a feeling out process early where they're both a bit hesitant. It's not like they've been out for a year or anything like that, and I just think Derrick Lewis, if both of them bring their A game, is going to get that KO blow straight on the chin within the first minute of this fight. Massive action immediately as soon as the bell sounds. And looking forward to it, man. I'm looking forward to it. Of course, Tuivasa is going to try and utilize those calf kicks. One of the best moves that he has in his entire career. I think Derrick Lewis can deal with him. He's got very thick legs. He's dealt with leg kicks before, and he seems to be able to survive a couple of rounds with taking those kinds of leg kicks. He also does a lot of good work with like some kicks off of his lead leg. He throws like a jumping switch kick, which will keep his legs off the ground and maybe mess up the timing of Tai Tuivasa early in this fight if he starts with it. I reckon Derrick Lewis goes out there, Starts with a jumping switch kick immediately. Makes Tai Tuivasa respect him a little bit more. Start backing up a little bit. Start putting Tai Tuivasa on the back foot. Derrick Lewis lands a couple of big shots. Tai Tuivasa lands a couple of big shots back. Oh my god, Tuivasa cracked him there. Tuivasa starts closing the distance a bit. Derrick Lewis lands a big shot on Tai Tuivasa. Down goes Tai Tuivasa. I essentially see this being the opposite of Greg Hardy versus Tai Tuivasa. Except Tai Tuivasa is the Greg Hardy in this situation. And Derrick Lewis is going to be the Tai Tuivasa. But again, flabby fat Samoans seem to do quite well against Derrick Lewis. Mark Hunt beat him, of course, so we'll see how things go, but I just reckon we've got the healthiest version of Derrick Lewis here, as active as he's ever been. 3 fights within a 6-month period. I think he's on his A game, and I think Tuivasa, there's a chance he's not on his A game, and he's just taking this matchup because he wants to jump up the rankings, and he might not get an opportunity against number 3 in the world anytime soon. So I think there's more reason to feel safe that Derrick Lewis is on his A game for this matchup than there is for Tai Tuivasa. I don't think Derrick Lewis would be taking this matchup if he was injured, because it's in Houston. He doesn't want to let his hometown down again. It's also very quick after his last fight, so I don't think he'd be doing that if he was injured as well. But if Tai Tuivasa is injured, there is a chance he would still take this matchup anyway. So there's many reasons why I'm going with Derrick Lewis, but I just think that's the main reason. Derrick Lewis, best we've seen him recently, in my opinion, especially after that Dorcas win. Looks very switched on in the early rounds, and I think he's going to get another brutal first-round KO to add to the highlight reel, and I just hope Tai Tuivasa is okay after this one. Maybe he can rematch Sergey Spivak. If he loses, try and get that loss off of his resume, show his improvements in his grappling, and then work his way back up afterwards. We'll see what goes down. I'm just going with Derrick Lewis, right-hand KO, first round, towards the 50-second mark. Probably like 54 seconds. We'll see how accurate I am. Like and subscribe. Click that button up there. Toodle pip, I'll see you later. Actually, click that button up there. Why would I do it over this side in front of my fucking head? I'm not dumb. Let's do it over here. Click that button there. See you later.